I'm a bloke after fashion, but what I want to reassure you about is that a lot of very talented, brilliant women put this presentation together and did all the background research, and time-honoured bloke fashion. I've just taken it, and I'm getting all the credit for this conversation. This is a project that we did with Mumsnet. They came to us and said, we want to do a conference on marketing to mums, and could you help us out, come up with a name, which was Mumstock. Thank you very much. And also provide some research or thinking. And there are lots of things that we could have done. But the thing I really was passionate about trying to get to grips with was a sense that there were a whole bunch of myths about marketing to mums that over my career have really irritated me, and I was going to get this opportunity once and for all to stand up in front of a bunch of clients and tell them that they were getting it wrong, and I really didn't want to let that go. So I constructed a piece of research that combined social listening with the Mumsnet. They have about 4.6 million monthly users, visitors, some work with Ipsos to depth charge it with a bit of quant and to face off against the accusation lots of people have about Mumsnet, which is it's just posh mums, and then also some qualitative research that we did to sort of try and unpack and contextualise what was going on. And so I just want to share that with you today. I did, if you came to the Mumstock event, and you liked it, then just sit back and enjoy yourself. If you didn't like it, imagine it's just like really bad sex. It's going to be over very, very soon. There are about 18... I'm not getting it. There are 18 million women in this country who, according to the 2011 census, classify themselves as a mother. And I know that we all love segmentation and that sort of stuff, but that's a fucking enormous group of people to sort of segment off from the rest of society and label in this incredibly simplistic way. So it didn't seem unreasonable to set out and try and understand whether we were doing a decent enough job at talking to them. And if you want a brutal and simplistic headline, it's that we're not really doing a very good job at all. If only 19% of mothers with children, that's women with children, mothers, believe there are any examples of mums in advertising that they can relate to, then there's got to be something pretty rotten in the state of ad land. If only 19% relate to the stuff that we're producing, and it's hardly surprising because this is the diet of creative guano that we feed our mothers on. Here's a news flash for you advertisers. Please, I realise you all have targets to make, stereotypes to depict, money to count, but treat parents as intelligent people, not just as parents. So the research led me to believe that marketing is kind of working according to a series of myths that all of us, clients, agencies alike, are carrying around in our heads about the word or the label mum or mothers, and that if they ever were true, and possibly at some point in 1974 they were, they've long since ceased to be the case. And it really is time that you and I start to challenge this at every part of the process, whether that's the briefs we're taking from clients, their awful segmentation studies and ghastly pen portraits, whether it's the conversations we have with creative teams, knowing what they think every time we put mum on a creative brief. That's where I think we need to be challenging these myths. Now, I said there are 5 myths. There are actually 6. If you go onto the Byzantine and completely unnavigable Saatchi website, there's a white paper with a 6th special myth, just for the people that can be bothered, which is to do with work-life balance and the lack of guilt that working mums now feel about working, which I found fascinating. Got a lot of media traction, slightly less relevant to marketing and advertising. Go and have a look. 5 myths. The first one is that the myth that motherhood defines mums. If you look at the output of our industry, you'd imagine that motherhood is all-consuming for mums and an absolutely appropriate label for her lives. It may be for that woman, but she's not particularly representative of women in this country. The real truth is that mums, while feeling that motherhood is an obviously important role and responsibility, it's not an adequate definition of the entirety of their lives, and still less their identity. And if you can't understand the seeming contradiction in the phrase, I'm a mum but I'm not a mum, then it's probably time that you stopped doing work that targets women with children until you have figured that out. I would never define myself as a mum. Of course I'm a mum, but I like to see myself as an independent person. And this is one of my favourite quotes of all from the Qual, and I think it is about the relationship that mums have with their kids, and particularly their daughters. They won't remember the things that I taught them. They'll remember the person that I was. A lot of mums talking about their identity talk about the need to show their children who they are, rather than simply teach them. When we asked people, are you happy with people calling your mum? Only a quarter of British mothers are happy with anybody else apart from their families calling them mum. Well, that's not surprising, is it? Because the word mum, I don't know when you last use it, but it's a pet term, a pet name that kids, little kids, once they've grown out of mummy, or in my case, that's never, but once they've grown out of mummy, they call their mother mum. It's a term of endearment between children and their mothers, possibly to the kind of tighter family group. You might, as a dad, refer to your partner as mum, mightn't you? But it's not a term to be appropriated and inhabited by the marketing community in a desperate attempt. And we know why it fucking happened, didn't we? Because it looks cooler. On a oh yeah, we call them mums. We're proud sponsors of mum. It makes it seem like brands and advertisers that are in some way closer to the women they're choosing to target. So motherhood, yes. I mean, it's okay. I admit, I'm a bloke, I'm a dad, but I'm a bloke, and I'm channeling other people. So if I've got this wrong, please forgive me. But motherhood is a role and responsibility. But it's not a mother's life in its entirety, and few brands really understand this. I do feel that John Lewis gets close, because while it honours and respects, this is it's called Generations, but it's the Always a Woman campaign that they ran a few years ago. While it honours and respects that woman's role as a mother, it also sits it within the many and complex identities that she has. Second myth. Marketing kind of believes that, I mean, do you remember, this is from Mary Poppins, where Mary Poppins rather arrogantly, where she measures the kids and finds that they're slightly under par, and then she measures herself and finds that she's practically perfect in every way. And marketers kind of believe that of mothers, that at least mums are seeking perfection, desperately seeking perfection. And guess what? They're looking to brands like ours to help them achieve that, aren't they? That's what they always say. I'm not suggesting that every mum doesn't want to be a good mum. Everyone wants to be a good mum. Every dad wants to be a good dad. But kind of good is the word, isn't it? It's about good enough is good enough. That's the nature of modern families. It's not about perfection. And indeed, perfection is increasingly ridiculed. It's certainly not something that people any longer strive for. And in cases, they overtly resent the pretense at perfection. So 74% British mums say they aren't perfect, but then they're not trying to be. And only 9% say they've ever met a perfect mum. There's a very scary geographical difference in London, where we've gathered together some of the most talented, ambitious and driven women on earth, and the number of women in London who striving for perfection in motherhood is slightly higher. But in Britain, it's not the case at all. We all suck the stains out of their rugby shirts and pack them back in the bag because we forgot to wash them. So, let's hear it for messiness, and good is good enough. And let's hear it for brands that prefer to settle themselves into the messy world of family life, because it's a lot more fun than perfection and a damn sight less time-consuming. Now, of course, what you're all saying is, yes, but I work for a trendy ad agency and it's Shoreditch, and we're not like that at all. We totally understand what's going on with modern bubs. Well, I've got these are briefs that Mumsnet received from your clients, and I want to read them to you. She needs constant assurance. She needs constant assurance that her home is clean and fresh, so she can feel relaxed and in control of her household. It's her duty to create a perfectly clean and organised environment for her family, so that they, I don't know why that's in bold, but they can achieve their goals. This mum would say, my greatest reward is when the results of my laundry are perfect, showing off my efforts, meaning I will get recognition from family. I need this feedback to feel reassured I am a good mum. The dad, this is a battery manufacturer. The dad needs batteries for his cameras and gadgets. Mum needs them for practical items, such as TV remotes and fire alarms. Oh, and this one, this car will appeal to the most stylish and adventurous outgoing members of insert car brand here. It's a car that will appeal more to dads. And it's easy to laugh at that shit, but those are all briefs that very well-meaning clients have taken to an organisation for Mumsnet, or called Mumsnet, which isn't known for its misogyny, and have happened in the last 6 to 12 months. That was a little interlude. Back to the myths. The third myth. Yes. Marketers seem to believe that mums are paragons of saintly virtue. Marketing mum, she doesn't swear, she doesn't drink a little bit too much on a Monday night, she doesn't laugh at the same thing as other adults, she doesn't talk about sex, and she certainly doesn't have sex, which is more than a little ironic. I've lost count. I've lost count of the number of clients who've said, our mums don't really like edgy humour. They prefer the Vicar of Dibley. That's a genuine Weetabix brief. And I kind of go, but it's been off air since 2007. Are they really late in catching up on their Sky Plus? And then you go, hold on. The average age of first child in the UK right now is just shy of 30. If that child is now 10, then that mum was 20 at the height of the dance and drugs culture of the mid-1990s. She wasn't watching Vicar of Dibley. Sorry to break this to you, but mums are adults too, with the same humour, same desires, frustrations as other adults. And they've got a dark and sometimes dirty sense of humour. And you only have to have followed the penis speaker thread on Mumsnet to know about that. Don't try Googling penis speaker. That's the best I could do. It looks quite uncomfortable to me, to be honest. But anyway, and if you want a sense of how mums entertain each other and the language and humour they use, then just go and sit on some of those threads for a bit, and you'll find out. And of course, at the heart of this, there's a sense that the real enemy here is becoming mumsy. It's almost like I'm a mother, but I'm not mumsy. Only 30% of mums say that motherhood has made them more mumsy, and only 28% say that motherhood has made them more reserved and to constrain their behaviour. Just because I'm a mum, it doesn't mean I've had a humour bypass operation. Doesn't make me less of a mum with what comes out of my mouth. I swear, make jokes and talk about sex more than the average person. There's absolutely no effect on my parenting skills. Of course it fucking doesn't. So could we stop treating mums like children? They're surrounded by enough of those people, little people, for us to treat mums like children. This ad, it's a US ad for Old Spice. It gets a lot of criticism for portraying the mums in a really mumsy way, which feels like it was a massive own goal. But that insight about the morbid fear that mothers have that their sons will one day grow up and fall in love with women that aren't them is a nice kind of sense of what she finds funny and amusing and interesting about life with teenage boys. Talking about teenage boys, this brings us to the useless dad. This is not about marketing to dads at all. This is about saying, we as a community still seem to think that we can empathise with mums and curry favour with them by portraying their partners as clowns at best and part-time idiots at worst. But when I talk to mothers, they're talking increasingly about partners being full partners. I mean, the clue's in the name. Full partners in parenthood. And shock horror that they might even be starting to pull their weight. I think it's a really difficult subject because a lot of mums kind of recoil at the thought that their other half is remotely helpful. I think what's going on is that family life has been really tough for the last few years, and there's a real sense that families have had to pull together to get through the last 5, 6, 7 years. And there's a phrase that somebody came up with at this Mumsnet conference, which was #TeamFamily. But I think it's really important to understand mums in the context of the whole of the family and the role and their partner plays and the way that he or she fits into that family life, working as a team. Because 60% of British mums right now are saying their partner is as involved in parenting as they are. And I'm sure you'll want to throw things at me, but 25% of mothers think their partner isn't, only 25% of mothers think their partner isn't doing enough around the house. The bumbling husband, clever wife adverts are just cringeworthy. They were probably funny a few years ago, but now it's just another stereotype and a boring one at that. Or this, sorry, long quote, I fucking love it. I'm not the only parent in my household. There happens to be an adult male living here too, who is equally involved in the creation of the small people. He's fully functioning, responsible adult. He's perfectly capable of being with, not looking after or babysitting, but being with his children. There's no better example of this, I think, right now than the Robinson's Pals ad. You'll know it's the one where two boys have the most amazing, wonderful day together. They get home, they get down, collapse on the sofa, slake their thirst with some Robinson's squash, and then the camera cuts back and we realise that one of the boys was a dad all along. That recognises not the way to market to dads, but the way to talk about dad's parenting and the importance of dad's parenting well to mums. The only sadness I have about this is right now I just can't imagine the ad where we go right the way through it and realise at the end that that relationship was between a mother and her daughter or a mother and her son. It feels like that's still beyond us. Which brings us to our final myth for today. Marketers seem to believe that motherhood is a life of frazzled drudgery with the odd moment of saintly pride. You know, the switching off the light at the end of the day with the beatific children sleeping soundly in their cots. Indeed, it is still our preferred option when trying to empathise with mothers. We still do the whole kind of, it's that image of the mobile phone under the baby, the mixing bowl, she's juggling, she's time poor, all that sort of redundant nonsense about motherhood. And if there's only one provocation, and I admit it's a provocation that I'd love you to take away from today, it is simply that motherhood is potentially the most fun you can have with your clothes hole. It's hard. It's fucking hard. I understand that sometimes it's overwhelmingly difficult, and it can be right the way through the experience of motherhood, from day to day, from hour to hour. But it's pretty much the most fun you can have with your... They used to say this about advertising before procurement departments made it really miserable business to be in. Because, you know, you invite into your life the funniest, you know, most loving human beings, and you end up crying with laughter much more than you cry with frustration or pain that the little fuckers still haven't put their shoes on and you need to be out of the door. They've not cleaned their teeth. It's about the banter, but none of us really, you know, we just made an ad for one of our clients, which is all about bringing peace to family mealtimes, but it just stops at the peace. It doesn't then explore, you know, the banter and family life that goes on when mealtime goes really, really well. 60% of mums say the best fun they have is with their kids, and 60% also say that their kids are more fun to spend time with most of the adults that they know. And you could interpret this in a negative way, but I choose to see this as a glorious representation of where family life is getting to in this country. That actually, it's enormously good fun to spend time with your children. You don't want to be, you know, to have additional time, I don't know, labour-saving device to get the washing done more quickly. You want to spend the time mucking about with your kids. That's why you had them in the first place. So why can't we recognise that being a mum is sometimes just really good fun? And there was a greetings card viral that went round around Mum's Day or whatever in the US, saying that you know, wanted people for the hardest job in the world, that completely reduced motherhood to a sort of drudgery chore. So before, though, you go off and follow the timely advice of Mr. Bill Hicks that anybody in marketing and advertising should just go and kill yourselves, I think a little bit like has been said before, it's not, particularly by Jane, it's not, you know, it's not marketing's fault alone. It's not advertising's fault alone. I mean, I think society's got a pretty fucked up view of what motherhood is all about. There's only one thing I've done for the cause of feminism. It will simply be getting the Mail online to print a headline saying, modern mums aren't guilty about working. I see that as a personal triumph to get that rag to print something positive about motherhood. You know, it's society that uses this label. It's culture that fills it with nonsense, and it's the media that persecutes mums on an almost daily basis. There is a desperate need for society to recognise that this mum label hides enormous fault lines in motherhood. And do you know what? They aren't between mums that work at home and mums that seek paid employment at all. Their attitudes on a lot of this stuff are surprisingly similar. The real fault lines are the ones you'd expect in a deeply divided society. They're about geography, ethnicity, class, education level, you know, and that is what we ought to be exploring. I'd like to understand what your strategy for mums in London is in relation to your strategy for mums in other parts of the country. It's that sort of thing that seems really, really important, and that we recognise the individuality and diversity of motherhood. I feel that Sheryl Sandberg's sort of going in the right direction with this this project she's doing with Getty Images to try and provide a better representation of women and mothers, in particular in stock photography. But I also think it's desperately important for marketing to start to recognise the reality of mums' lives and engage with and empathise with real mothers and not the fetid pen portraits that clients carry around in their heads, and then planners carry around in their heads, and then creative directors carry around in their heads, and then the director carries around in his head, and then they spew all over our television as we saw before. And if this little three-letter word is becoming increasingly useless when it comes to creating anything of worth, perhaps we should banish it altogether. and exercise it from our creative briefs and from our strategies and from our segmentations. And maybe, like Rachel's talking about female tribes, you know, understand that there's a much richer picture behind there. I personally prefer the idea of talking about women with children, because that forces you as a planner and as a creative team to think about the woman first and the role she is playing and label she's been given second. Thank you.